There exists a kind of gateway within the mind, a mental portal that gently opens just before we drift into sleep. It is during this subtle, transitional moment that powerful impressions are embedded deep within the subconscious. And what resides within that internal world inevitably shapes the experiences we have in the external one. Without even realizing it, you may be unconsciously undermining your own progress and potential every single night. But here's the twist. You can choose to harness that same fleeting period to initiate the most profound transformation of your life. I've witnessed individuals break free from long periods of stagnation and enter a state of overwhelming abundance in mere days. I've seen emotional wounds begin to heal, internal barriers dissolve, and entire realities shift. Relationships began to restore themselves, careers took off, health improved, and all of it started with a seemingly minor practice. A simple nighttime ritual that, though it appears small from the outside, connects directly to the most potent aspect of your inner being. What I'm about to share may be the clearest explanation you've ever come across about this process. I always had a deep sense that the minutes before falling asleep were anything but ordinary. There's something sacred about this in-between phase, when the physical body begins to relax and shut down, yet the mind remains alert and conscious. It's a moment suspended between worlds. I call this the alpha portal. It's during this interval that brainwave frequencies begin to drop. The analytical mind begins to quiet, and the subconscious, our emotional powerhouse, becomes incredibly susceptible to suggestion. After much reflection and study, I discovered that the final 15 to 20 minutes before entering deep sleep are absolutely critical. These moments define the trajectory of your inner programming. During this time, the brain operates in a blend of alpha and theta wave states. And then it hit me. Any emotion that dominated my heart, any recurring thought I focused on, any image I held in my mind during this window began to materialize in my life with surprising speed. This isn't fantasy. It's not wishful thinking. It's neuroscience in action. Once this realization sank in, I made a deliberate decision to become highly selective about what I allowed into my awareness before sleep. The shift was almost immediate. My reality began to answer back, using a completely different language. Every night, I began crafting vivid internal experiences. I saw myself engaging in successful conversations. I imagined holding the keys to a beautiful new home, feeling their weight and texture in my hand. I heard my own laughter in the wake of an unexpected accomplishment. I didn't just think about these things. I felt them as if they were happening right now. I created an immersive ritual involving sound, imagery, and affirmations, all synchronized to match the energy of the life I intended to create. And this was not just about mindlessly repeating mantras or phrases. That never works. It was about emotional embodiment. I turned that window of time before sleep into a sacred lab where the blueprint of my future could be engineered without interference. I refused to let anxious thoughts or daily frustrations steal that moment. Of course, they tried to intrude, but I trained my mind to gently steer itself back toward the vision I was cultivating. This disciplined redirection rewired my inner world. It dawned on me that my external life wasn't being shaped by what happened during the day, but by this quiet, often overlooked moment in the evening. This invisible pause in the routine, the final thoughts before surrendering to sleep, was the hidden switch that altered my frequency. And so, a new ritual was born. When I committed to applying this method consistently, something extraordinary unfolded. During a time of deep introspection and uncertainty, I decided to experiment with something different. This wasn't some complex method or far-fetched theory. It was a grounded and purposeful nighttime practice, anchored in 3 core elements: affirmation, visualization, and repetition. I followed it religiously, every night, for 7 straight days. What happened next was beyond anything I could have predicted. My financial situation, which had been steady but unremarkable, suddenly exploded. Within less than a year, my income multiplied tenfold. I had already learned that the brain requires emotional repetition in order to rewrite its internal coding. So I developed personalized affirmations, phrases that genuinely stirred a feeling of abundance inside me. I declared things like, "I am a limitless source of prosperity," or each day, "The universe aligns itself to bring me opportunities." But again, It was never about rote repetition. It was about immersion. I let each word penetrate my body and soul. I pictured scenes in high definition. I invented mental stories, complete with sound, color, and emotion. I bathed in the sensation of gratitude as though the dreams I envisioned had already come to life. I didn't just speak these affirmations. I lived them internally. I remember vividly one night when I visualized myself signing a multi-million-dollar contract. I could feel the smoothness of the paper, the pressure of the pen in my hand, the slight warmth of the room. It felt real, so real that my nervous system responded as if it were actually happening. That's the secret. The brain doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined event and a real one. To the subconscious, they're the same. And once I truly grasped that, I began treating these nightly visualizations like sacred ceremonies, as though I were planting invisible seeds in the fertile soil of the subconscious, trusting that they would bloom in time. And the beauty? I never had to chase results. Opportunities began to flow naturally. I received invitations out of the blue. Chance encounters turned into meaningful connections, and profitable ideas began to pour in. It wasn't magic, it was resonance. I had tuned into the frequency of abundance. And like a magnet, I started drawing toward me all that matched that vibration. For years, I've studied how the subconscious governs our lived experience. What I uncovered is as clear as it is profound. When the mind is operating in an alpha state, the barriers between conscious intention and subconscious programming dissolve. In that window, whatever is repeated with genuine emotion slips directly into the core of your being. The subconscious doesn't question, analyze, or debate. It simply absorbs whatever is presented with emotional intensity. And this becomes the foundation upon which reality is built. So, I learned that it's not just the words that matter, it's the energy behind them. When someone casually mutters, "I am wealthy," but doesn't believe a word of it, the mind discards it as noise. But when that same phrase is spoken with conviction, with gratitude, with a sense of embodiment, the subconscious registers it as truth. And from that point on, it starts to restructure your internal landscape to match that truth. This is what I call internal reprogramming. In one of the retreats I facilitated, I saw people undergo radical transformations, not because they absorbed new knowledge, but because they experienced new emotional states. They rewired their nervous systems to align with a future reality before it had shown up in their physical world. That is the essence of conscious creation. Not hoping, not wishing, but feeling and embodying the future now. The mind began forging connections that had never existed before, as if it were experimenting with the blueprint of a new dimension of reality. And guess what? This fresh version of reality started to manifest, gradually, organically, and with uncanny precision. It was as though the brain was unlocking a new level of awareness, one layer at a time. This is how subconscious reprogramming functions, like sowing a potent seed into nurturing soil. However, planting the seed is just the beginning. You must nurture it, tend to it consistently, and do so with purposeful intent. It's not sufficient to try once and then abandon the effort the next day. The mind thrives on consistency. It requires sustained input in order to anchor new neural circuitry. That's how transformation is cemented, through deliberate repetition and emotional engagement. Eventually, I came to a striking realization. Even though many individuals held immense inner potential, they were still tripping over invisible hurdles. And when I decided to dig deeper into what was really happening, I uncovered 3 major pitfalls, critical missteps that were derailing their progress. You see, not everything flows instantly or with immediate results. What struck me the most over time was that a lack of results wasn't usually due to laziness or lack of trying. It stemmed from subtle, often unnoticed mistakes. These errors were like quiet saboteurs in the background. The first, and perhaps most underestimated of these, was trying to apply mental techniques when the body was already drained. When the mind is nearing shutdown and the physical energy is depleted, it's nearly impossible to generate genuine emotional charge. It's the equivalent of trying to sow seeds in cracked, parched earth. The intention may be sincere, but without the energy to back it up, the soil doesn't respond. The second error I observed repeatedly in students and practitioners was the use of vague, lifeless affirmations. General, hollow statements like, "I want to be rich," or "I desire a better life," don't activate the subconscious mind or the energy field. They're too ambiguous to ignite transformation. The subconscious craves precision. It resonates more deeply with vivid imagery, clear objectives, and intensity. For example, declaring, "I receive 1 million yen every month doing what fulfills me," carries a completely different frequency. It's tangible, it's exact. That kind of statement plants a focused intention in the subconscious mind, which then begins constructing that reality from the inside out. The third and possibly the most frequently overlooked mistake is inconsistency, failing to maintain the practice for at least 7 consecutive days. The human mind needs reinforcement. Repetition is the glue that binds new pathways in the brain. Abandoning the process too soon is like carving out a trail through the forest and then allowing it to become overgrown again. The path disappears, and you're back where you started. That's why I emphasize persistence so much. 7 days may seem like a short period, but when practiced with genuine devotion and emotional depth, it's more than enough to spark a deep internal shift. When I began to implement these core principles with unwavering discipline, everything started to make sense. There was no more space for half-hearted attempts or wishful thinking. It came down to 3 things: clarity, repetition, and emotional involvement. That was the recipe, the formula. And it was right there, waiting to be used, as long as each element was honored. That's when I crafted a deliberate sequence of words, structured with an introduction, a build-up, and a conclusion that would activate my energetic field and recalibrate my subconscious programming, as if I were rewriting my inner blueprint for prosperity. At one point, I could intuitively feel the exact words I needed to speak. It wasn't just about repeating affirmations mindlessly anymore. It had become a conscious act of selecting, with surgical accuracy, the words that would pierce directly into the core code of my reality. So, I established a ritual. It began with a priming command, a phrase that signaled to the brain, "We are entering a state of reprogramming." Words like "I allow" or "activate now" functioned as energetic keys. These commands prepared my inner landscape for what was to come. Following the priming phrase came the heart of the practice, the financial DNA reprogramming itself. I spoke to my energy system as if it were a conscious, responsive intelligence. I would say things like, "Each cell in my body resonates with financial abundance," or "My nervous system is perfectly tuned to the frequency of prosperity." These weren't just empty lines. They were declarations infused with life and conviction. It was essential that I spoke them with full presence and vitality. There was no room for half-hearted whispers. The subconscious mind only responds when it senses you are deeply aligned and sincere. To conclude each session, I would use a finalizing statement, a sort of energetic punctuation. Words like, "It is done," or "So it is, so it shall be," acted as a signal of closure, a confirmation, a release. It was the equivalent of pressing enter after writing a powerful command. More than that, it embodied trust, a gesture of surrender. I would finish the session and simply let go, with full assurance that the process had already been initiated. There was no need to obsess or force anything further. The only thing left was to remain in alignment with what I had just programmed. This straightforward yet potent method became a foundational part of my daily life. It was like writing a new internal script every evening, a set of instructions to guide my brain on what to anticipate, attract, and materialize. But there was one final piece to the puzzle, something even more powerful that enhanced the process exponentially: emotional visualization. Because while affirmations give structure, it's the emotionally charged images that breathe life into the experience. I came to understand that the mind doesn't primarily think in words, it thinks in pictures. And the more emotionally charged those mental images are, the more indelibly they are etched into the subconscious. So it wasn't enough to just speak. I had to see, hear, and feel as though it were already happening in the present moment. Emotional visualization acts as a catalyst, amplifying the energy of the spoken word and turning it into a living sensation within the body. Every night, I would go to sleep with a vivid scenario in my mind's eye. I visualized opening an email filled with incredible news. I imagined feeling the texture of currency in my hands. I saw the digits in my bank account growing. But I didn't stop at just seeing. I responded to those mental scenes emotionally. I felt real joy, sincere gratitude, deep relief. My body believed it. And when the body believes, the energetic field shifts. Reality begins to mirror that internal transformation. It's as if the universe no longer distinguishes between imagination and truth. It begins aligning circumstances to match your inner world. And in a very real sense, that new reality is already on its way. I combined affirming statements with vivid mental imagery. I declared, I embody prosperity, while simultaneously envisioning myself raising a glass in celebration, bursting into joyful laughter on a sunlit balcony filled with warmth and light. I proclaimed, abundance flows to me with ease and grace, as I pictured people offering their heartfelt congratulations, clients arriving effortlessly, and pathways effortlessly unfolding before me. I continued this ritual until my entire being felt aligned. This wasn't just empty daydreaming. It was a deliberate, conscious simulation of a future I was stepping into. It was a rehearsal, a preparatory stage for the life that was already on its way to me. The more deeply I immersed myself in the emotional energy of it, the more quickly the external responses began to manifest. That's when I realized this was not merely wishful thinking. It was a form of communication, a sacred, nonverbal dialogue occurring between the electromagnetic field of my body and the limitless potential of the quantum field. That connection became the portal, my access point, to creating the most transformational affirmations I had ever spoken. These weren't just simple phrases. They were powerful declarations, intentionally infused with energy and belief, potent enough to reshape the very fabric of my subconscious programming. Some words aren't just sounds. They are codes, energetic keys. And when these codes are activated through deep awareness and authentic emotion, they don't just change your mindset, they change your reality. I chose to believe. I embraced affirmations that carried such an elevated frequency, my entire physical being would react. One, for example, was, I am a vibrant center of wealth and affluence. I repeated it again and again until my heart center resonated with the truth of it. Speaking alone wasn't sufficient. I had to embody the energy of each statement I made. These affirmations weren't selected at random. They emerged after long periods of personal experimentation, nights filled with stillness, reflection, and careful observation of how my body responded to each phrase. When I would affirm, my mind radiates constant prosperity. I visualized my brain literally rewiring itself, building new neural connections and transmitting coherent frequencies aligned with the abundant life I envisioned. And what's even more fascinating, I could feel it physically. There was one particular phrase that marked the culmination of the entire process. It was brief, yet its power was unmatched. It is done. Those 3 words sealed everything. They became my energetic signature. At that moment, doubt dissolved. Anxieties faded. I spoke the words and then released all attachment, because I knew it was already complete. The universe had received my instruction. My brain was already in harmony with it. My only remaining task was to keep my body vibrating on that same frequency in the days that followed. I committed to repeating these affirmations for 7 days straight, always at the same hour, always in the same sacred ritual, always infused with deep emotional sincerity. Each day, the universe responded more clearly. Subtle hints, seemingly random synchronicities, unexpected blessings, all flowing effortlessly into my reality. And all of it happened because, beyond the spoken words, a much greater force was at work, a silent intelligence, ever-present, yet invisible, that mirrored my trust and certainty. Deep down, I had always known there was something beyond the conscious mind, a higher organizing power holding everything together with extraordinary precision. And it was only when I surrendered my practices to this divine intelligence that everything began to expand. It became more than just a technique. It was no longer about repetition or visual stimulation alone. I had begun to partner with a higher consciousness, one that worked with me, through me, and on my behalf. That sacred collaboration gave deeper meaning to every step of the process. What once felt mechanical now became something holy. It turned into devotion. I approached each ritual with clear, unwavering intention to cooperate with the creative intelligence of the cosmos. When I declared myself as prosperous, I wasn't simply affirming it for myself. I was speaking to the divine consciousness of the universe. I acknowledged the infinite abundance that surrounds all of us. And I realized it's not some rare gift reserved for a few. It's a divine inheritance, a natural alignment with our truest nature. From that point on, I no longer asked like someone begging. I declared like someone who had already received. On many nights, just before sleep, I would place both hands over my heart and give thanks for blessings that had not yet arrived, but that I knew were already on their way. I could feel the universe orchestrating behind the scenes, aligning people, events, and opportunities with immaculate timing. And in that deep sense of inner knowing, any remnants of anxiety dissolved. I understood clearly. When your intention is pure and your emotion is in resonance, the divine takes care of the rest. The mind sets the intention. The body emits the signal. The spirit brings it into form. This quiet surrender, combined with disciplined focus, became the recipe for miracles. Not miracles in the mythical sense, but miracles as in watching the extraordinary unfold in the most natural, fluid ways. So, each night before closing my eyes, I made a conscious choice. I activated my frequency. I reprogrammed my subconscious mind. And then, I released the outcome, trusting that the universe would fulfill its part of the dance. Because now, I understood without any doubt that those final 17 minutes before falling asleep are the most pivotal window of my day, and maybe even my entire life. Now that you know the incredible power hidden within those sacred 17 minutes, I ask you, will you continue handing over your mind to randomness, or will you choose to wield that time as a tool for intentional creation? How many more dreams will you delay before realizing the importance of what you are planting into your subconscious every night? Everything you've ever longed for, wealth, wellness, inner peace, it's already waiting for you. But the real question remains. Are you tuning yourself to the vibration of that reality? Or are you unconsciously replaying old scripts before turning off the light? The universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to the energy you consistently feel. Now that you are aware, will you go to sleep burdened by worry? Or will you use those final moments to author a new destiny? Because the one who masters those final minutes masters their future. And that choice is entirely yours. Drop it in the comments below. I am a magnetic center of abundance, and the universe joyfully works in my favor.